All right, I saw the end of Oak Street, and it's pretty much what anyone could guess. This simple little suburban little neighborhood it suddenly finds itself transported back in time in the dinosaur days. And so, everything's going nuts and crazy and wild because dinosaurs and all kinds of prehistoric creatures start snooping around the neighborhood and causing all kinds of mayhem and whatnot. And oh my goodness, what happened? Well, now it's a bad robot film. So immediately thought, well, what's the mystery box? Well, kind of, sort of, there isn't one. It's left open that this is some strange phenomena that's been theorized and whatnot. I remember hearing about different ghost stories might actually be people coming through from different times and stuff, and that there's certain kind of time warps that might suddenly appear and whatnot. So there's hints and whatnot that there's some sort of atmospheric disturbances, solar flares of unusual type or what have you in a brief, radio or television report. And so that's your first little clue, and then weird things happen, and suddenly they find themselves there. And so the dinosaurs show up, and they're much more updated dinosaurs. You've got the feathers and stuff like that. And the dinosaurs do a pretty good job in their performance as dinosaurs, so, I'll give them that. Right off the bat, what was the wokeness here? The emphasis is on female characters stepping forward. It's a bit more subtle than most of these, but it's there. And then, of course, Ewan McGregor plays the father in this family. That's the main focus of the story, with Anne Hathaway as his wife, and she's the mother and everything. But the marriage is troubled because, Ewan's a loser. He lost his job. He's down to delivering pizzas to make extra money and whatnot. And for whatever reason, this makes him a terrible loser, and everything's his fault. And so even after the time warp catastrophe, she starts arguing with him. I mean, stuff like that, And I'm like, what? In the middle of this? So, it's some elements, it's interesting. It's kind of cool. It's dinosaurs and all that sort of stuff. And they play it out, and it's kind of sort of reminiscent of old Spielberg movies and that sort of thing with, the kids and all that. But then just stupid things happen. That's one of them. Another is this bully that's been troubling the boy of the family, and then that comes into play for a brief moment, and it's almost as if the movie suddenly realized, this is stupid. But it's stupid because it would not have happened. Not after all that. That kid's not going to be chasing after this other kid in the middle of this madness. Yeah. So anyway, the total girl boss movie. You gotta up the ante a little bit to really classify for it. I mean, we don't see Anne Hathaway beating the crap out of Navy SEALs. She does challenge dinosaurs, but not to the, like she's whooping its ass like Conan and chopping its head off or anything like that. No, nothing like that happens. They get chased a lot by them, and they do their best to survive, stun them enough to escape and stuff like that. But as it progresses, there is another check box that they click. It's rather subtle, but gee, I won't spoil everything. But anyway, there is a moment. So ultimately, they begin to realize there might be a way to get back. Now, that's cute and quaint. I mean, because it's hard to. What story do you make about this? This strange event happens in the midst of this family that's possibly on the verge of a divorce and whatnot. And of course, this incredible, bizarre adventure brings them back together and that sort of thing. But ultimately, the real story is they're stuck there. Can they survive? No, they would not survive this world. I don't think so. And but they're, it's a weird set of circumstance, and whatever the event is that caused it is not quite through. So yeah. And that sort of thing. The problem is there's this shocking scene that happens. And I suppose you could say it's not shocking because of the circumstances that they're under. So this is always possible. But there is a moment where the father gets to be absolutely heroic. And, it's devastating, and you can see there's a certain credibility to it, and it lends motivation for the escape that happens, and how it resolves. And then ultimately, yes, Anne Hathaway saves the day and figures out how to do it despite all that shock and how crazy this all is. I don't know. There was some way like, one of the neighbors just happened to be really into, weird theories about physics and everything. And I mean, they did mention Carl Sagan, and this takes place in 1982. And of course, Carl Sagan was becoming quite the celebrity at the time. I remember I was a young lad watching his Cosmos show, where he would discuss all these weird things about the universe and whatnot. And so I suppose you could get a couple of ideas there and say, holy crap, something kind of like that happened. Although I don't recall him telling us that you never know, there could be millions and millions of wormholes that could suddenly open up just down the street. Now, I don't recall any of that. But time displacement and whatnot, and like space travel and that sort of thing. The other theories about wormholes opening up just in your backyard, there might be a doorway to the past. How far they twist that, but it's a movie. I don't know. What are your options? Your other option would be that they lived outside a military base and they were experimenting with some sort of craft and it opened a wormhole accidentally and this happened. You could do that, I suppose, to give your explanation. But for what they do, it's fine enough. Yeah, as they sit around and try to guess what the hell just happened, and you can just assume other people in the neighborhood probably did the same thing. And did any of them find their way out? It seems they didn't. I mean, it seems like Anne Hathaway's the big hero at the end. But they figure out a way to do it with a happy ending. However, if you know your time travel, this creates quite a few problems. So then you have to conclude they did not make it home. They simply went to an alternate timeline created by what happens in the end. Yeah. Because in doing so, that means a certain someone wasn't available for the entirety of the movie. And so your motivation for what happens that resolves it can't occur. And so you're still stuck in the dinosaur world, that kind of thing. So if you saw it, you understand, without me spoiling it. So is it worth it? I don't know. Some people might like it. People are taken with dinosaurs. It's not the worst thing I've seen. But for the most part, it's just, There was a couple of scenes I laughed at, and this kind of thing. So Uh, it'd be interesting to see how well it does on streaming, if this is one of those that gets a lot of views. And that might be the habit for a lot of people. Is that, I'll wait for streaming, even though it's this big spectacular with dinosaurs running through the neighborhood and that sort of thing. But, there's been how many Jurassic Parks by now doing stuff like that. So, maybe it's not seen as that big of a deal anymore. And then, of course, spectaculars like Spider-Man and whatnot. That'll get you to the theaters and that sort of thing. So the habit that streaming has created, of course, people, well, this is what I'll wait for on streaming. And this might be it. So maybe it'll find new life there. That doesn't quite equate like it did in the old days, where Blu-ray could be a second win for a movie that may not have done well at the theaters, but then caught a whole lot of life after the fact. And it really isn't that. Streaming doesn't really replace that, But anyway, I don't hate the movie, but it was all right.